Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. And welcome to the end of social summer. Today we are going to be kind of engaging in an ode for summer, a lament for the loss of summer, even though in my last video, if you tuned into that one, I mentioned how excited I am for spooky season. That does not mean that I am not sad for the end of summer and the end of summer weather and the end of all of the things that have to do with this particular season, including but not limited to beachy hair and short sleeves and summer romance vibes and lakes and oceans and swimming and not that I did any of those things, but you know what I mean. I'm a summer baby. I love the warm weather, and I also was just kind of starting to feel some kind of way because I'm filming this on August 31st. It is the last day of August. And even though I'm in my early 30s now, that end of summer back to school feeling still very much exists within my physical body and my mental and emotional being as well. I don't know if there is a point in life where you ever really shake off the back to school feeling. It seems like even if you're not school age, there's very much this energy that like once September rolls around and the kids are back to school, the rest of the world kind of also snaps back into like a reality or something a little bit more serious. So I'm very much feeling that. And I guess in like an ode to the summer, today's look is going to be something along the lines of like bronzed mermaid. So I've donned my pearls, I've given myself some mermaid hair, I've got a seahorse in the background, and we're just gonna give it a go. I want to feel mermaidish, I want to feel summery still. I have my ocean themed water bottle here. I don't quite want to let go of that. And in that same vein, like I was saying, that back to school feeling is very much sitting right here in me. And I think a huge part of that is the anxiety of change. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today as well. And I think this anxiety of change ties into so many things I've been feeling, I think, but also so many things that we have collectively been experiencing and sentiments that I've been seeing reflected back at me in some of the content that I've been consuming. So we're going to try to kind of dive into all of that. We're going to go for, you know, some bronzed mermaid things. We're gonna put some makeup on our face, obviously, in order to accomplish that. Mostly all pre-existing makeup. There's only one new piece here that is new and very exciting. Yeah, I think we should just jump right in. So I am going to just pin my bangs back here so that for once we actually can see my whole face. I washed my face as per usual a little bit earlier before I started filming. So even though I did put my skincare on after I washed my face, I just want to be a little bit more hydrated before we start to apply. So this is the rare occasion that I do this, but I am going to go in with a primer product. So this is the NYX Plump Right Back. I think I've used this once on my channel so far, and I'm just going to take like a tiny amount there. I don't need anything extreme. My face isn't parched by any means. I just kind of want a little bit of a hydrated base because, you know, if we're thinking mermaid vibes and mermaid skin, we would be quite hydrated unless we've been out of the water for a significant amount of time. Now, just to get them over with, because we know that I have been loathing the brow routine lately, I am just going to slick those back a little bit. Although, on that note, I have been really having a hard time with brow products, and just in terms of gels, I have the e.l.f. brow lift. I don't know how anyone else is getting that to work for them because it does not provide me with any hold, so I don't really understand what's going on there. And I'm just missing a really good solid hold brow gel that isn't necessarily tinted. And so I think I mentioned this a few videos ago, but I had this little mini rose ink brow gel, and there was basically nothing in the container that I could tell. Like when the spoolie comes out, it just doesn't look like it was anything. So what I did was I pulled off the stopper and I just filled it with my NYX. Nope, I lied. I filled it with the Got To Be Glued hair gel. But I think the same thing is happening. Like it must all just be sitting right at the base of this. And because the wand is so short, it's not actually hitting the product, so nothing is ending up on the spoolie. But I thought that this would be an ingenious way to kind of continue using this container because I quite like the brush on it. But if it's not picking up the product, what's the point? Anyways, the brows are really not important because we are a banged mermaid, you know? For complexion, which I don't know how well you can tell this on the camera, but my skin has been having a freaking moment, and not in a nice way. I don't know if I'm like having some weird hormone thing or what, but I'm getting breakouts like on my forehead, kind of like all over the place. I'm super congested along my jawline again. My nose has been breaking out. I'm getting breakouts like up on my cheeks. It's just very unusual. I don't understand what's happening. I've also been very high anxiety lately, so not picking has been a problem. So all of that to say, I'm going to just cover a little bit of stuff up. And we are back to the NYX Bear With Me concealer serum today. So I'm going to be using a combination of golden, which is the one I have previously used on the channel, and then I'm going to use also medium. So medium is obviously just a little bit darker. It matches me a little bit better right now that I've been in the sun more. So I'm just gonna pop kind of like just teeny tiny squirts. You really don't need a lot of this product onto the back of my hand here, and we are going to go in with that. I have this new EcoTools angled crease brush that I have not been using for eyeshadow by any means, but I have been using it to apply my concealer with lately, and I'm obsessed. This is a great little concealer brush, and it came in like a set from Walmart. And I really like EcoTools brushes. Like, oh, look at how pale that color is on me now. Like, I was really out here thinking I wasn't getting enough sun this summer, but clearly, oh boy, I almost just should have used, that's way too pale. I should have just used medium for the whole face because you can barely detect that. So I might have to do another layer. But I do really like this concealer product. It's very nice. It's very lightweight. And it's from the drugstore. So that is kind of a hard to beat thing. And it's not outrageously expensive, obviously. I'm not going to go too much up onto the blemishes on my forehead because the bangs will be coming down, and it's just one less thing that I have to go really hard at when I'm washing my face tonight. And also on like an average day, unless I've got some sort of like absolute beam of a zit on my forehead, I'm not really doing any kind of complexion work up there because the bangs. If I were to wear my bangs back, which is very rare, I would of course even out things on my forehead. But when especially when it's the summertime and you have bangs and then you have product on there, it all just like sits and kind of, I don't know, it doesn't congeal quite, but it's not necessarily a good mix. So I kind of like to just let my forehead breathe. Yeah, the under eyes are super bright, but that That is also partially because of my lighting, but we'll sort of walk that back a little bit. I just don't want to put that much more product. I did the coverage that I wanted to. Oh, I keep forgetting that I've got this little thing here. I don't know, does anyone else get like cystic zits right beside their ear? Or like whatever this part of the ear is called, I always get, and it's always on this side. I don't know what that is all about, but they're extremely painful. And then because I'm me, I pick the shit out of them. Okay, because I want to be super bronzy, as in I have been sitting on a big outcropping or peninsula under the sun, you know, combing my hair as a mermaid would do. I want to be exceptionally well bronzed, well sunned. So I thought that it would be the perfect opportunity to break out my Tower 28 Bronzino in Best Coast. But I'm realizing that I don't have my bronzer brush, so BRB. All right, bronzer brush has been acquired, and I'm going to start applying that. And as I start applying this to my skin and blending it in and getting all bronzy, I am going to dive back into my topic of conversation today, which is the anxiety of change and how that ties into the back to school feelings, the change of seasons, just all of it. And I think collectively, as I was kind of indicating, I think we're all experiencing this. I think this might be one of the reasons why nostalgia, especially like millennial nostalgia, has been so big and trendy in the last little while. Because over the last couple of years, we have all been hugely traumatized by not just one, but many global events. But the one in particular being the pandemic, which for all intents and purposes paused life as we know it. And by having our lives paused for essentially 2 years, we underwent a huge amount of change. We had to completely change the way that we moved about the world. We had to completely change the way that we worked, whether that meant we were all of a sudden out of work or we were all of a sudden working in very volatile, very dangerous situations, dangerous in terms of health, not obviously other work conditions, or changes in that all of a sudden we were thrust into homes with our other family members and or by ourselves, but also had to keep working in those environments. So all in all, there was just a lot of change that was going on. And so now that we're kind of coming out on the other side of this pandemic, you know, life is resuming, but I think we're all experiencing this anxiety of change because we don't want anything else to change. There's been too much change happening. And so while we all want our lives to move forward and to move on, and we want to put this trauma behind us, we also, I think, are deeply craving, you know, quote unquote, simpler times. Hence the millennial nostalgia. You know, we're all aching for the music and the simplicity and the feelings that we were given in, you know, the 2000s. We're very much missing, I think, a time that is completely inaccessible to us because time has been inaccessible to us. Does that make sense? Like, I keep talking about the COVID time warp. Everyone, I think, is experiencing this weird temporal distortion because the pandemic made everything blur together. And especially if you were expected to continue on like business as usual, that temporal distortion, I think, was even more severe because you weren't actually given an opportunity to process what was happening. So instead, you had to just kind of keep trucking on as if there was nothing going on outside of your door. So everything just kind of blends together, but at the same time, you're being bombarded with the chaos of the external forces of life that are completely beyond your control. I mean, even just on a regular day, pandemic notwithstanding, I personally struggle so much with change-based anxiety. I don't like change. I have never liked change. I get so stressed out about changes to my personal environment, my personal, home landscape. I get really stressed out about having to make decisions that could potentially change my life, the course of my life. I get really stressed out when changes of seasons happen, even if I know that, like spooky season, I'm going to have a great time come that season, and there are all kinds of things in that season that I like. I get all of this anxiety, and I think it's maybe like, again, I get very disoriented quite easily. I get very unsettled if I'm having a lot of like inner life, emotional turmoil. External changes are that much more stressful. And I don't think that I'm alone in that. Change is hard. Even if change has a tendency to mean that we're growing and that, life does go on and we're being presented with opportunities to learn and become better versions of ourselves. There's growth in discomfort. I don't know if that's the actual phrase, but you don't evolve without a certain amount of discomfort. And of course, intellectually, I know that and I love that. And I say all of the time that we are not static creatures as human beings. We are dynamic and we are constantly changing and evolving. But that is paired in this really intense dichotomy with the anxiety of change. I don't know if we have any real conscious anxiety around like microcosmic changes, but given the added stress and just overall malaise, emotional and psychological malaise of the past 2 years, any small change now also feels too astronomical. And obviously I don't want to speak for anyone other than myself, but I also don't believe that I am completely alone in some of these sentiments. I think even when I was a school-aged kid, there were a few kind of milestones in my summer that imbued me with equal parts excitement and anxiety. One was knowing when our camping trip was right around the corner, and you do get that anticipatory anxiety. We would go camping for 3 weeks every year, so obviously as a child that means 3 weeks of a complete life change. You're going to be at a campground for 3 weeks, meaning your home environment is getting an overhaul. You're going to be living basically outside, so again, an environmental change. You're going to be away from your friends. You're going to be like with your family, with your parents and your sibling or siblings for 3 whole weeks. Like that is a huge dynamic change. And so even though we absolutely loved going camping every year, there is a lot to process around that as well. And then the other one was, once we would come back from our 3-week camping trip, it was usually we had 2 weeks left of August, maybe 3 weeks left of August, and those weeks would always go by so quickly, which meant, oh my gosh, we have to go back to school. And it was the start of a new year, and you by nature had to change. You were forced to change because you're in a different grade now. You're 1 grade older. You're 1 year older. You've experienced a whole summer, and especially when you're young, kids change so much so quickly. So over the course of, a couple months of summer, everybody comes back different. I mean, if you're prepubescent, you come back in, middle school age, and girls have boobs, guys have weird trying to grow mustaches, and like all of a sudden everybody has an intense amount of body odor. Like there's so much, there's, social dynamics that will have changed over the summer because some of your friends may have gone away, some may have stayed, and the ones that have stayed you'll have bonded with more over the summer than with the ones who have gone away. And so you have to kind of re-navigate and renegotiate all of these social and environmental parameters that haven't stayed the same, even though the physical building might be the same. You're different. Am I making any sense? I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna start on the eyes because I think I'm sufficiently bronzed for now. And because of, you know, my thematic look that I'm going to do, I thought I would break out my e.l.f. Earth and Ocean palette and just kind of start laying the groundwork. I obviously don't want to go into these shades here because these are definitely more earthy, but there is this Desert Storm kind of khaki colored green that I think I'm gonna just toss into my crease very, very lightly as a base, but it's also very much a color that exists quite comfortably in the ocean world, or even just like oceanside, seaside. That's quite lovely and reasonably subtle. Just so that I don't forget later, I'm going to go in with the same shade and just immediately put that on the lower lash line. I'm not going quite all the way in. I'm leaving maybe about like a quarter of my lower lash line for now. So mostly focusing on the outer edge into the middle. And I'm not being precise at all. Like, I'm pretty sloppy. My mirror is quite far away. So like up close, this might be really terrible. Then I think, okay, so I have, just before I go too much more into the palette and start making decisions there that I'm not really 100% sure about yet, I have the Danessa Myricks Color Fix Foil in Mermaid, appropriate. And then I have this e.l.f., I don't know, it's one of their liquid eyeshadow like shimmers in the shade Mermaid Shimmy. And I have used both on camera before, I believe. I will swatch both and we can just kind of decide what is up. So here is a swatch of the Danessa Myricks Vision Flush Foil, Color Fix Foil in Mermaid, which is definitely more blue than I think I want to go. And this is the e.l.f., which is more of a greeny teal, but also blends out to almost sheer with a really nice amount of just like sparse glitter, which is pretty much my vibe. So I think that might be the way that we go. And I'm just looking here. So it's very similar, like the base shade, which isn't super pigmented, is very similar to this color right here, which is Underwater. But I think I want to go in and lay down some more actual green. So this is Can't Kelp It. I'm going to go in with this Eco Tools Precision Blending Brush. So it's just, it's not super, super dense, but a lot more dense than the fluffy brush, and just kind of this rounded little dome shape. And I'm just going to tap that into Can't Kelp It and start placing that really professionally into the outer edge here. You know what? That brush is just not accomplishing what I wanted it to. But I do need something. Whatever, we're just gonna use the fluffy brush, and it will just not be precise at all. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. I don't know what happened on this side, but there's like this little spot where the shadow is not really sticking to. I laid down way more pigment on here, kind of. I don't know. So yeah, I was thinking about this a lot today, because I think, once again, it's one of those things where it's like really good for us to be aware of not just our feelings, but understanding the root of our feelings, understanding where those feelings are drumming up from, because they don't just start from, you know, nowhere. They don't come from the sky. They don't just drop into your brain and your body. And I think for me, it's all this very intense anxiety around change. And I'll give you another example. So when I moved back home, and I may have talked about this before, I can't quite remember. I'm just going back in with a little bit more Desert Storm just to kind of even out the blend. So I moved out of the apartment I was in Toronto because I was going to have to move out anyways. The apartment had been marked for a new development. So pandemic or no, I was going to have to leave kind of in the same timeline. But because of the amount of time that I had been living in that condo, I was, you know, number one, paid out for being evicted, paid out for leaving because, you know, thank goodness there's certain programs that protect tenants from being completely displaced. But as all part and kind of parcel of that deal is that when the new development is finished, okay, I'm going in with the elf. When the new development is finished, I am owed a replacement unit in the new building. This might be old now and it's like kind of dry and not really having the effect that I want. So yes, I am owed a replacement unit in the new development once it is finished. And it's the tenant's responsibility to follow up on that. So if it's something that you're interested in, totally fine. But you as the individual have to stay on top of it. You have to do all of the follow-up. I had to sign, you know, a letter of interest, and then it is up to me to stay up to date with the development and check in with them. And when it comes time to go back, make the decision about whether or not that is something that I want to do. It's been causing me a lot of stress and anxiety, largely in part because one, I don't actually know if I want to move back to Toronto. I don't think that I do. I had a very specific goal to live in Toronto, live in a city like Toronto for 5 years. And I was approximately 6 months short of actually accomplishing that. So I was there for 5 years. Goal accomplished. And I didn't really have a plan in place specifically for once that 5 years kind of came up. I think though, had I had the opportunity, I would have stayed in my apartment. But, you know, life changed, the circumstances changed, and I left Toronto. And I came back to my hometown where I realized that, oh, I actually like living outside of the city. I enjoy the life that is afforded to me here. I enjoy the access to the outdoors. I enjoy the easier access to green spaces. I like the energy here. I like that at nighttime I can hear the crickets and I'm not constantly being bombarded by the sounds of the city, and that I don't have this constant urgency and erratic energy running through my chest and my tummy that, like, if I'm sitting at home, I'm somehow being unproductive or I should be out in the city proper doing something. But when I'm home, when I'm home in my current living situation in my hometown in the suburbs, that energy has almost completely dissipated. I don't feel guilty for being at home at the end of the day on a weekend night. I don't feel like, oh no, maybe I should be out at a new restaurant, or maybe I should be out getting drinks with insert imaginary friend here. Okay, I just took a little bit of the shade Oasis, which is this one here, and it is a kind of matte periwinkle. And I'm just placing that kind of in the inner corner, but brushing it in towards the green. I don't know if I like that. It's kind of making me look sick. Maybe I will try a different brush. And I'm gonna go in with Salt Water, which is a shimmery, almost like celestial shade, but in that same tone. That's pretty. I think that was the right call. And did I mention that that's the color salt water. So yes, I moved home. I realized that I actually enjoy this lifestyle, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with age. You know, in your early 20s, living in your hometown for most people is not it. We want to go out, we want to figure out who the hell we are in life. And for most of us, that isn't really something that can be accomplished on the home front. You need to leave home in order to really get a sense of who you are and how you move through the world. And I think that for myself, I accomplished that. And then, you know, I really started thinking about the rest of my life and what does my future look like? What do I want for myself? There were relationships and there was talk of a future that didn't just involve myself and my cat. All of a sudden, you know, I'm starting to think a little bit bigger picture and realizing that, oh, you know what? I think I'm like actually ready to settle down. I would love to start talking about starting a family. I would love to have my own house, which means that for a myriad of reasons, not just explicitly the fact that millennials can barely afford breakfast, let alone a house, but it all kind of was pointing to the fact that that wasn't going to happen in the city or even, you know, the greater Toronto area. I was going to have to leave that environment. And that in and of itself was giving me huge anxiety, but where my anxiety of change struck me the most was the idea of kind of what feels like stepping backwards and going back to the city and trying to restart a life there. So every time that I thought about this replacement unit in the new development, where the deal is phenomenal and the rent would be, dare I say, actually affordable, it's freaking me the fuck out and giving me so much stress and anxiety, not just because of the change, but because I think it's, for me right now, the wrong kind of change. But I also struggle with knowing what is the right kind of change, and am I just generally fearful and letting my anxiety win? Because I'm so afraid of change. I don't know. It's just, it's a lot. And then the end of summer rolls around and it's the end of social summer. We're still like 3 weeks away from the actual equinox, which is giving me a little bit of relief from that, you know, anxiety of change. But for all intents and purposes, the social summer, the dynamics of the social summer will be over in less than a week. Once Labor Day comes and goes here in North America, it's like back again to what I was saying before, this quote unquote version of a more serious reality where everyone has to buckle down and put their worker hats back on and just not have any more fun. Like you have to get serious about the real world. And that ain't it either, but it's what we all have to go through and experience. And if you're an adult in any kind of like mainstream job, do we have much choice? Do we get to say no to that? I mean, we do, and I think that's a part of what this whole quiet quitting movement is about. Okay, I am just dabbing some more salt water into the corner here. I ended up going into like the inner thirds with this shade Underwater, which is this lovely shimmery deep sea teal, which looks absolutely gorgeous. The e.l.f. really didn't accomplish what I wanted to in terms of the amounts of sparkles, and I think it's honestly just, it looks like this is so full, but I think I just kept it and didn't use it for so long and it dried out. Like the oomph of this product has faded, but that's okay. I still got some sparkles on my lid, and there is definitely a like flakier texture shadow in this palette, but it's part of the earth section. It's called Tundra, and it's too icy. It doesn't have the tones in it that I really want, so I'm not going to use that. Although with it completely sheared out, that is quite pretty. Dang it. Whatever. It'll just be sparkles. I'll just make it shoulder sparkles. Well, I'm really liking how this eye look turned out. And like, you guys, am I getting better at makeup? Are we improving? Am I changing in a good way, in a way that doesn't make me anxious? Like, I'm still me, but improved. See, this is the kind of thing that is fine. All right, I actually am quite happy with where the eyes are at. I'm just gonna do a little bit more of a touch up with the Can't Help It in this lower corner here. I just want a little bit more pigment. And then I'm gonna put that palette aside and I'm gonna go in and do my mascara, but that is the opportunity to take a breath, and I'll come back when I have done my mascara. I'm kind of gonna do a layered combination of my e.l.f. Big Mood and the regular version of the Essence Double Trouble. So BRB. Okay, eyelashes are done, and I actually quite like that combination. I'm using a combination of mascaras right now because the e.l.f. Big Mood is just starting to get a little old and a little too clumpy. So this mascara has a really nice brush, and it's kind of also like double-sided, so it's like silicone on this end and has that like normal bristle brush on this end. But I find that it just kind of helps to separate, and also just because it's newer, there's a little bit more volume in the product there. So I think the eyes look really pretty actually. I am so shiny. So I'm just gonna take a little makeup sponge here and pop it into the pan of my Cheekbone Beauty Translucent, I can speak. Oh, Translucent Power, the Moon Dust or whatever it's called, and just kind of dab away at some of that shine. I really like applying it with a little sponge. That's quite delightful. Now for cheeks, I think I made a good call with the Tower 28 Bronzino. Like, that's the kind of bronze I was hoping for. Like, I look tanned. I don't want to get any makeup on my pearls, but for blush, I'm going to put on, I think this might be my new freaking favorite. It is the About Face Cheek Freak in the shade Smash. I have used it so much already that like the imprint is mostly gone, but super cute, super pretty. And on me, Smash is very much like a natural kind of sunburn tone. I have a lot of thoughts about the product, but stay tuned for a proper video because I bought multiple shades, like a lot. And I'm gonna do like a whole swatch situation, but also we're gonna kind of do a dive into the formula, the color, the saturation, the opaqueness or translucency of the product, and whether or not it's a truly appropriate blush product for multiple different skin tones and not just, you know, like white or light brown shade tanned girls. All of that being said, that is conversation for another day, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get this on my cheeks. I have been using my fingers or a sponge or a brush. It works beautifully with all of the above. I have zero complaints. It's so pretty, and this shade is just truly something else. Like, look at that. It's honestly not that far off from the Tower 28 Bronzino because the shade Best Coast is the like red leaning bronzer. So it's got that same tone, which means that it's just a very complementary match for this blush. I kind of want to just take that up a little bit into the under eye just to kind of decrease some of that really intense brightness. All right, and then I'm going to go back in with the powder, just more around the nose and underneath here, just to kind of have some different textures, but also knock down the intensity around there so doesn't look so clowny. And then for lips, to finish it off, actually let's do this first because I knew that was potentially a bad idea. I got caught in the rain today on my bike, which was just a tragedy for my bangs. And then pinning them back is just a problem. So for my lips, because I want to have something that's neutral but also kind of pull in more of the bronziness that I'm looking for, and like I don't actually now feel bronzed enough, so do we have to add a little bit more? Is this too much? There's only one way to find out. It's just to do it. Just gotta get that, you know, sculpted or whatever. So for the lips, I'm going to use my now extinct Bite Beauty Yay Sayer Plumping Lip Gloss in the shade Cinnamon Twist. And like, what a tragedy that I've only used this much, but also an even larger tragedy that Bite Beauty has gone the way of the dinosaurs. And there is a fuzzy somewhere. Such a beautiful product. And I think I did one of those things where I just used I bought 3, I used all 3 shades, but then was so afraid of the change I would experience. I was so anxious about the change I would go through if I finished these, and then the decision I would have to make once I had finished them, so I just put them away and pretended they didn't exist. Oh man, I am just exposing all of my pathologies. It's great. But isn't that so pretty? I kind of want just a little bit of a shadow to kind of bump down, I suppose, my lower lip. So just adding a little bit of lip liner there. I'm doing the same on the top. And because I apply that over top of the lip gloss, obviously it's like not going to last a super long time, but tis what it is. Now, I'm gonna toss in one of these little clips for the full, maybe I'll put both of them in. You know, we're going full mermaid here. I feel beautiful. And like I've got bracelets. This one has a seahorse on it. Can you see it? This one is all pearls and things. It's very pretty. I really like this look. And I love this. This is actually a bathing suit from Sleeper? I don't know. Self the Ariel swoopy bangs. Yo, low-key. This dingle hopper is rather effective. Okay, so what do you guys think? Are you experiencing some anxiety around change, especially as the seasons start to flip over? And I don't mean, are you ready for summer to be over in terms of the temperature and the apparel and the fashion and all of the kind of pop cultural things that are associated with the seasonal change. I mean the feelings and the implications of a seasonal change. Especially, I think summer to fall has a larger implication than any of the others, because even spring into summer has a much softer implication because that's when things kind of slow down and some of the pressure is lifted and school ends. Whereas this is the complete reverse, whereas it feels like, you know, we're being herded back onto the hamster wheel a little bit. And if you don't experience any kind of anxiety of change around that, I hope that if you're experiencing other anxieties about, you know, the future and all of the, I think, changes we're bound to undergo if you, like me, are in your 30s and starting to plan the next 5-10 years of your future, if you're in your 20s and doing something similar, you know, how are you guys feeling? What are some of your coping mechanisms for the anxiety experienced around change and things maybe like being destabilized by the idea of change? Or are you on the other side of that, quite excited? And do you love the anticipation? The anticipation? I'm inventing new words. I can speak. Love that. The anticipation of new things. I would love to, I think, be more excited and forward thinking when it comes to change, rather than being so anxious in these two places in my body. But that's something that we go to therapy for, friends. All right. I don't know if any of what I talked about today made sense. I had an internal dialogue going on all day today about what I wanted to talk about, and cannot tell you if I've hit any of the points, because as soon as I decide to start filming and have something that I want to talk about, my mind goes completely blank and then I just have to wing it. So welcome to improv, bitches. Okay, all of that being said, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and once again, my feature film of the week. If you did enjoy this video, please go ahead and give me a big thumbs up. And if you're new here and made it all the way to the very end and you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, because I would absolutely love to have you as part of the Lamb fam. We have a cute, fun time here. We do real girl shit. We talk about real life things, and we also play with cute makeup. And look, on the subject of change, we evolve our skills, and that is something that is absolutely so cool. And like, how awesome that you guys are here with me for the journey of my makeup skill improvement, because like, what the fuck? I think this looks great. Anyways, that is everything from me today, you guys. Let me just rewind that. I'm gonna check myself before I wreck myself, because I was recently watching one of Kaki's videos, who has received some, I think, pretty great feedback lately, that by saying guys, even though it's so second nature and isn't intentionally gendering people, it is a gendered piece of language. So I'm going to try and make a conscious effort to also not say guys any longer, and I'll just keep saying y'all, even though I'm not American. Anyways, y'all, that is everything from me today. I love you so much, and I will see you